Okay, now that we have the car prepped, I'm going to go ahead and get into the removal of the LS4 engine and transmission without dropping your K-frame. I'm going to go into detail about how and what you need to remove, how to remove it, and an easy way to keep track of it. So that way when you go to put it back together, all you got to do is just follow what you've done, taking it apart. Okay, so before we start removing the engine and transmission, we've got to drain all the fluids. Right now we're going to work on the transmission pan. There are 20 10mm bolts around the whole pan, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to drain it, making the least amount of mess. There's no drain plug in these in transmission pans like there is for the oil pans up here in the front. So you have to hand loosen up every single bolt, and then you're going to work from this edge of your transmission pan backwards, taking out the bolts, slowly prying down the transmission pan, draining the fluid. They're not on very tight. They should never be on tight because they'll deform your gasket. So it's pretty simple. Just loosen them up and then you'll be able to use your hands. All right, so they're all loose. Get your drain pan in somewhat of a good location. Start by removing these two at the end. Completely remove these two out. And then take the next two out. If you don't have a pry bar like this, a flathead screwdriver will work the same. What you're going to do is, now that we have these loose, we're going to start one by one back across, lowering the pan down at this point and keeping it up here. The fluid's going to start leaking out around the whole gasket. So we're just trying to eliminate how much it leaks out back here, directing it all into your pan. The gaskets do stick a little bit, but they do a little bit of prying, they will come loose. You'll hear it breaking loose, like it just did there. So you can see already right here is the first drip of transmission fluid, and now there. So we know that the gasket has broken free from the bottom of the transmission. Now just take your time and slowly, there's no rush on this, slowly loosen up the next few bolts, and you'll start seeing that. There you go, it's draining. You don't want to get this all over the floor, so just take your time doing it. Go back to putting the pry bar or screwdriver, whichever you have in here. All right, well, as you can see, the flow has decreased. So move your pry bar. We're going to go back, remove the next set of bolts. Taking them all out now, except for the two in the corners. This one here in the corner and this one here in the corner. That way when I go and pry the pan down again, the pan just doesn't drop freely and make a disaster. As you can see, the pan did just move. It's already broke free from the transmission. So right now, the transmission is drained, but it's only drained to the level up here on the pan, on this top part of the pan. So inside here, you still have a little bit of fluid, which will spill out when you start taking this off. So that's what you gotta watch out for. It's loose. Loosen this one. All right, so at this point, I'm going to hold the transmission pan up, remove the last two screws with the other hand, and then drop the transmission pan down into the drain pan here. Eek. Okay, all the bolts are out. Take your pan, again, on this end, lean it forward into your drain pan and get the rest of the fluid out. That's it. That is everything inside the drain pan's removed. When we go to remove the axles, this will help. So there's not so much fluid coming out of the axles on the car. There's a residual fluid up in your filter and up in the transmission, and you're going to see it dripping for a while. We're just going to go ahead and let it sit and get set up and drain the oil. Okay, so to drain the oil on the oil pan is pretty simple. You have a 15mm bolt here, and this is your oil filter here. We're not going to pull the oil filter. We're going to wait till we get the engine completely out of the car. But we do want to take, I believe it's 6 quarts in this car, or 6.5 quarts for this motor. We want to go ahead and drain those quarts out of the oil pan itself. So 15mm socket. Crack it open. Got them both draining. Give them a few minutes, and then we'll come back, put transmission pan back on, just so it's not leaking everywhere, and it protects your lines and stuff underneath. Close everything up, and we'll go back up top and start removing the hoses and stuff to drain the coolant up front here. Actually, probably do it right here on the bottom. All right, so now we're at the point of draining the coolant. The correct way to do it is there's a drain plug buried way down in there, way down here on the right side of the cooling system, but it's a pain in the butt. So I found for myself, I just come over here to the lower radiator hose, which is right down here. I just disconnect the lower radiator hose and then slowly pull it off, letting it drain out into the drain pan.